Hello, welcome to another episode of Clues, Cues and Reviews, and today we're looking at chapter 824 of One Piece. As always, a 10 out of 10 chapter. Gorda doesn't disappoint ever. In 2016, this is the year of One Piece, this is the year of Sanji, and this is the saga of versus the four Yonko. Before getting into it, yes, I'm wearing shades. It's mainly to do with, if you can see off the reflection, I'm using softboxes in my videos now. It gets quite bright and I end up squinting a lot, becoming squint eastward, so it's to avoid doing all of that. And it doesn't look too bad, even though it looks kind of bent with my fake Ray-Bans. Anyway, so decent chapter. Without further ado, let's get into the review. So, we normally do 5-point reviews. We have 5 points, 4 mainly based on location, and the 5th one's going to be left for speculation. Please wait till the end of the video. I will throw a few theories out there, which good chance they could come true, but you'll have to wait and see what's going on with it. But let's start off with point number 1. Location number 1, point number 1 is the ship heading to Whole Cake Island in pursuit and rescue of Sanji. So, a few things to take from this. We see them reading the newspaper, the news of the Revolutionary Army and Blackbeard and everything else. And forget, there's quite a few different pieces of information on there. A few things that confirmed. Number 1, it appears like none of the major revolutions were captured. Much like I mentioned previously, as did a lot of other reviewers, it could easily be the case that they were never on the island to begin with, and maybe some scrubs got defeated, or literally nobody was there by the time that Blackbeard had arrived. We know that Blackbeard wrecked the place, and we also know that the Marines turned up with Cypher Paul, possibly Cypher Paul Zero. After a little skirmish, Blackbeard retreated. Now this could be out of fear, or this could just be tactical to avoid taking much damage. He probably has bigger fish to fry. So, with that being said, and this is confirmed by Pedro, and the idea that if they had caught or killed one of the revolutionary members, it would be said. Where's the Revolutionary Army? Possibly on the way to Revo. It's not coincidental that was mentioned pretty much in the same chapter. He's making his move, basically, is what I think is happening there. Possible revelations to why he's the most dangerous man? We'll find out. Also important to note that this is the first time Luffy's officially seen the face of Dragon. Even though he was mentioned before and knows he has a father, he has no idea what he looks like. So it's kind of interesting, the fact that he's not really so bothered what he looks like, other than the fact that he looks nothing like him, and which is kind of bizarre in itself. Though I always think that Luffy tends to look more like his grandfather than he does his father. In any case, he was more worried about Sabo than anything else, and on the flip side, had this been Dragon would be more worried about Robin than it would be his son. So it's kind of funny how that interaction works. So that's an interesting piece of information. Another reason why Luffy is not going to like Blackbeard. Had he done something more drastic, like killed a member, that would probably pissed him off a lot more and make him hate Blackbeard. Interesting also point to bear in mind, other than the comedic elements with Kara, who really should be Nakama by now, he burns the food, Luffy does, and sets up the process of starvation on the way to Whole Cake Island. Could this be a case where they're that hungry, although they try to infiltrate the situation, Luffy can't help himself and starts eating all the sweets and the food, and that starts the war of the fight, basically. There's a theory out there that Monet's fruit has basically transmitted to the tangerine trees that are on the ship. Could it be possible if this was the case, that's part of the starvation, this kind of kicks in right about now. Also, it's important to bear in mind that it looks like they're actually close by. The whole thing with Sanji, I'll talk about that in a second, but it looks like it's snowing basically on the way there, and it wasn't much later that they actually mentioned the whole thing with Sanji anyway. So that's point number 1. It's going to be a long. Point number 2, Sanji and Big Mom's ship. So the main ship that's associated to Big Mom is shown, and Sanji is basically on that with Tamago, the guy with the teacup that does the French speaking, as well as Veto, I think his name is. Basically the guy who's like an advisor or a consigliere, you could say, to Big Mom. So from a mafia point of view, so he's Tamago is basically kind of try to explain to Sanji that look, she respects your cooking, she respects you, she wants to basically assimilate you and Germa 66 under her, you know, hierarchy umbrella and whatnot. We also get confirmation that Sanji has kind of cut all ties with his father, possibly something to do with the history or his time growing up. And there was a theory out there, I think Roger's Base has mentioned it, and a few other places have got it on Reddit, I believe. I can't remember exactly where, because I tend to read a few different forums, Reddit and or Jackson and things like that, where there's possibly a power struggle going to happen in the future, either between Sanji and his brothers. Bearing in mind he's the third son, not the first, so between him and his two other brothers for control of Germa 66 as a possible ally in the future goals of Luffy as Pirate King. It could also be a conflict between him and his father, and possibly Germa 66 can play a role. I'll mention that in a future point. What's interesting to also bear in mind is Sanji's response was more to do with cooking than anything else, and he's only there to talk, and he basically says that I won't cook for anybody who basically doesn't value their friends, which is a common theme in shonen manga across you know, all shonen, I guess. I mean, there's parts of it in Naruto, there's all over the place. The nakama is the key thing here, and pretty much Tamago's, you know, response to that was Peckham's brought personal feelings into business. You know, you don't mix business with pleasure. And it's definitely a pleasure that he won't treasure no more. So basically, is you know, like the saying goes, you don't mix business with pleasure. And that's, I guess, the idea. Personal feelings should not come into it. You need to remain objective and true to your goal, and that's what's kind of let him down. So very much a mafioso-based thing, and ultimately he doesn't hold any ill will towards Capone, and Capone did right apparently, according to Tamago. In any case, we get the revelation that the bride-to-be is actually possibly, well, I say possibly, it pretty much is, the three-eyed girl. I have a theory which is going to be in the speculation about this three-eyed girl, so do definitely wait till the end to check that out. And by the reaction of Sanji, this is more than likely going to be a situation where he gets married and takes her with him. That's point number 2. Moving on to point number 3, Zo. Before I go on to Zo, the little piece of information that links 1 and 2, there's a section in the chapter where the Whole Cake, when they're heading towards Whole Cake Island, and they're like on a kind of one of the branch areas on the outskirts of the area that's surrounding the controlling area of Big Mom, so one of the smaller islands, there's cotton candy that's meant to be like snow. That same snow type situation actually appears in the panels for the ship that Luffy runs, so they're in the similar kind of area. And I'd imagine Peckham's is going to help them get across that. Just a little bit of piece of information that's interesting to say they're not that far behind and they are close by. With the whole salvation thing kicking in, it won't be too long before they start getting grumpy. Anyway, moving on to Zo. Zo is interesting because we find a few different things going on with this one. So we find out that the little monkey Bariete was bribed with 2 bananas to not speak anything. Wanda was obviously questioned that, but she was happier, sorry about my grammar, that she was okay and she knew where she was rather than not knowing. So you can see that Wanda is like the older sister type of thing when it comes to Carrot, but the fact they only took 2 bananas, I would have given them a whole bundle. Imagine what I could have got if I gave them a whole bundle. Quite possible. It's interesting. The other interesting point to bear in mind with this is, Arashi mentioned something about a Vivre card, that there's a possible traitor among their ranks where they had a Vivre card to get to Zo. That is the only way Jack got to Zo with his crew and came back to Zo with his crew. There'd be no other way to trace it. It's a question that's been circling for a while. That's the only thing I could think of. So yeah, that is actually quite interesting. I wonder who the traitor is. In any case, we also find and confirm that Jack, the 1 billion berry man, is alive. And pretty much, as a lot of people have called it, he's part fishman. So what came to mind when I saw his demise, so to speak, at the end of Zanisha is his teeth were very similar to Hody Jones and very similar to Dillinger. And you know how Dillinger's horns came out later on when he activated them? It could be quite possible that Jack is a combination of some type of giant clan as well as the fighting fish, and they're a kind of a hybrid, and that's why he can do what he can do. Now, I think the idea, if you think back to Van der Decken, he was okay underwater because he had his head covered, and that's possibly why he didn't lose his power and he could move around. I think what happens with fishermen, or possibly just hybrid fishermen, is they lose the ability to move but they don't drown, which is possibly the reason why he's so dangerous, because if you get people that's with him that are not fruit users that can guide him, he can pretty much be a beast underground and wreck a lot of ships. There's possibly, you know, backing to his 1 billion bounty. So he's got that bounty for a reason, and possibly this is part to do with it. I'd love to find out why he's actually covering his mouth. Is it because he's ashamed of his heritage, or is it because he knows that if people find out about the shark side of it or the fishman side of it, that the fishman will get punished for it? So there could be two ways that could go. We'll hopefully find out. He's alive still. I don't think Kaido knows he's alive. I think most everybody else got wrecked. So it's interesting to see what happens with that. We'll have to wait and see. But that is point number 3. Point number 4, I did say this was going to be a long one. I'm not wasting no time. It's so much information, I need to get it all out. So we get to see a bit of a humanizing of Kaido this time around. He's very upset and he's kind of drowning his sorrows in alcohol. He starts off, you know, upset and crying because of the idea that he's not going to be able to fulfill his dream of having a whole crew full of devil users because Joker was taken down. What was also funny was his explanation to why Joker was taken down, or Doflamingo. He goes, oh, poor Joker, he was just too weak. Doflamingo by no means is a weak character, considering his position and authority that he has in the underworld and against the Gorosei and, you know, just the pirate world in general, and how tough he was to deal with Gear 4, the Luffy and everything else. And, you know, Law had to help him with the whole Gamma Knife situation. For him to be called weak or not strong enough only further proves how powerful Kaido is. You could only imagine if someone like him was like, nah, psh, it's too weak. There's the only reason why it's no, you know, it's scrub. Basically, you know, calling him a scrub pretty much shows that the potential of power of Kaido is not to be trifled with. And also it's interesting that that shifted from the whole sorrow and, you know, being down in the dumps to effectively being enraged, and the way he used his demon club type of attack, the spiking, he sent one of his fodder crew members flying when he was talking about the Straw Hats. And then actually his speech about the Straw Hat Alliance really just got me hype. And I explained, he basically said, look, they're playing pirate games. They're just little children scurrying around. I'm the big cheese. They don't know what they're in for. It's pretty much what he meant and said. Now, he also says the last person that fucked with me, who thought he could do something, look what happened to him. And we get to see in the jail cell, and a lot of people were right, it was Kid. More than likely he didn't back down, he didn't want to be an underling, and he got wrecked. This does set up the idea that potentially he could help the Straw Hats out. Now it's interesting, when I was looking back at the chapters, I couldn't see where Killer had gone, and there's no really mention of Basil Hawkins. So we can guess that Apu was either a double agent or he's decided to work for Kaido, right? We don't know what's happening with Basil Hawkins. We know X-Drake is with Kaido. Where was Killer the whole time? Could Killer possibly be, as part of the whole theory about the Germa 66, then Sanji's other brothers, be one of those two brothers? It is quite possible, because we don't really see much of him in this chapter, and there's no mention of him at all being defeated or anything like that. And he doesn't seem like a person that would betray his captain. He doesn't seem like that kind of guy, from what we see of him anyway. Could it be possible that Killer is Sanji's brother? And this sets up a potential clash in the future, in this arc, with the idea that potentially to take down Kaido, if Killer had found out that Kid had been taken out, or Kid had been damaged or battered up through the alliance, that to take revenge, depending on the outcome of the situation with Germa 6 and Big Mom, that he takes Sanji, he goes to find Kaido, and he takes Germa 66 as backup. Would that not be awesome? A crew full of assassins. So that could possibly be another one of the Grand Fleet members, depending on how the situation pans out. Could you imagine the Grand Fleet members? We've got the fishermen under Jinbei. We've also got then the Germa 66 or Germa 66. Can you imagine the possibilities with that? It's an interesting little tidbit to mention. We find out about Kid. We find out Kaido's kind of thoughts on everything. He does not really care. He's ready to wreck him, I guess. We find out bits and bats of everything else. We find out about Luffy's thoughts on his dad and his brother. We find out about the Blackbeard scuffle. We find out about quite a bit of different things, and that pretty much ends the review of the different points. Now onto speculation and a theory that I'm hoping you enjoy. So, speculation time and theory time. I've already mentioned the Germa 66 situation. I've already mentioned the power clash situation. There is a possibility of the Kid alliance, kind of like in Chibodi arc, where it was Kid, Trafalgar Law and Luffy versus the world. I would absolutely love that. I'm not against that. There will be some interesting situations with that, with Kid wanting to go after Shanks. If they can overcome that and work together, that's possibly going to be what they're going to need to take on Kaido. Having Germa 66 would probably help as well. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about the three-eyed girl. So there's a lot of theories and speculation about the three-eyed girl. And I think, honestly, the fact that Sanji is meant to be an assassin, and the fact that his specialty is meant to be observation haki, in comparison to his armament haki, I think him being with the three-eyed girl is a perfect match. Because if you look at Sanji, first of all, Sanji being an assassin would need to be aware of his surroundings at all times to make the most of the situation and to go around not being detected. I think part of haki, from an observational haki point of view, is to detect others and to be undetected by other haki users. And I think that's an advanced form of observation haki. That's just my thought. Now, if his bride-to-be, the three-eyed girl, is also an observation haki user, it could lend to the idea that part of the reason why Big Mom has such a good intelligence network is to do with some type of observational haki. Now, we've seen in the past, Madame Charlie, I think her name was, in Fishman Island, was able to see glimpses into the future. Could it be possible that the three-eyed girl is able to see into the past? Someone can see into the future, why not the past, right? Here's reasons why. If you think of the story as a whole, in the idea or in the goal to get to finding out the truth about the Void Century, could a skill like that be useful? Absolutely, right? What would make that easier for the Straw Hat crew to have such a crazy ability is for a crew member to have it. So Sanji marrying this girl, not staying under Big Mom, taking her with him and being a Straw Hat member and she being another member as well, quite possibly be part of the end game to find out about the Void Century. Now you're probably thinking, why am I thinking all this? The idea about three eyes is about enlightenment, I guess, and about, you know, the all-seeing eye and having knowledge, and the idea that Big Mom's one of her scary powers is having this intelligence network and being able to find out stuff about your past and your loved ones. So could it be quite possible that she has a glimpse into the past, she might have a vision, and then she has crew members that corroborate and find out if that's the fact or that's the truth? Kind of like how you hear a rumor and people find out and you need proof to prove its correct existence, it's valid. It could be quite possible that's what happens with Big Mom, and that she can see the past, which will possibly help in the future. It is a crazy theory. It is realistically something that I've just thought about recently myself. I haven't heard it anywhere, but if someone has actually said it before, kudos to you. We're on the same page here, and I hope it comes true. It'll be interesting to see that. It'll just add another layer to the story with the idea that potentially this could help in revealing what happened in the past in the 4th century. You know, the whole situation with D's, what the government did, the ancient kingdom. I think that would be really brilliant, because we found out someone that can do view the future. We won't see someone that can view the past. But hey, that's what also poneglyphs are for, right? So I could be wrong, I could be right, but you've heard it here first, hopefully. I hope you enjoyed the chapter. I know it's a long review, but there's so much information I wanted to get out there. Also this theory at the end, because I always say I'm going to do theories, but never get around to it. So I want to tag this on at the end. I hope you enjoy it. Please like if you enjoyed the chapter, if you enjoyed my review, if you enjoyed my theory at the end. If you haven't already, please subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate that. I'm on 50 subscribers. I would love to get to 100 now. So please continue to show your support by subscribing. And let me know in the comment section below what you thought about the chapter, what you thought about the review, your theories, and what you thought about my theory as well. But that's all for me today, guys. Have a nice evening. Have a nice few days leading on to the weekend. I'll see you next time.